Before we start this Q&A, we thought we'd pay a short tribute to Peter McParland, who passed away yesterday at the age of 91, the last surviving member of the 1957 FA Cup winning team. Now, we filmed our Q&A on Sunday night before the news, but didn't want to not talk about it, so I've got Kendrick on to talk about it for a few minutes. How's things, mate?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. Yes, sad news. They used to have this old VHS videotape. I don't know if it was History of Aston Villa or something. It was the name that you heard, one of the first Villa names that I heard from a bygone age. I've just familiarised myself with some of the footage from the 1957
after the sound this morning,
and it really was a bygone age. It's like a different game. But his name was one that was synonymous with this glorious history of Aston Villa. Not on the proper commentary. On the proper commentary of the game by Kenneth Wolstenholme, who was the guy who commentated on the 1966 World Cup final as well. He shrugs off this shoulder barge that Peter McParland does. You know, it's an assault today, to be honest. But back then, you know, the commentator says, "Oh well, you know, let's see how they get on. Let's see if he gets back on his feet." And like the goalkeeper's flat out. My eyes thought, "Blimey, this bloke's big and strong and hard and all this kind of stuff." I think the first time I met him was 2013. McParland, as well as scoring those 2 goals the last time we won the FA Cup, had also scored in a League Cup victory in the early 60s as well, League Cup final victory. Really weird, random memory this, but I think we met him and interviewed him around the club shop back then. 2013, he's 12 years ago, so he'd still been a fairly elderly man in his late 70s or whatever. The memory that sticks in my mind, as well as he'd been a lovely fella, was he desperately needed the loo, but because the toilets in the club shop weren't open to the to the public, if you like, and we had to persuade the staff. No, this is not just a member of public. This is Aston Villa royalty. And because he's so understated and gentle, he was like, no, we don't want to cause a fuss. I don't want to cause a fuss. That was just, like I said, I know that's a silly example, but that's just an example of no airs and graces about him. Just a lovely man, as you would hope. I understand he's been, you can probably see some from the photographs of him in the last couple of months. He went to the event at Villa earlier in the year, didn't he? And looked fairly fragile. And somebody I know who keeps in regular contact with his family kind of warned me a couple of weeks ago that he was in a bad way. You know, I suppose it brings round the Aston Villa's failure to win the FA Cup all these years on. I think, I'm not proposing, not pretending to have known Peter particularly well. I think he'd have loved that record to have been broken. I think
of course.
To not be all these years on, I can't imagine when he scored that brace against Man United that he'd have thought, well, oh yes, I've got this for the next 60 odd years, or whatever it is. Well, more than that now. How many years is it now, Dan? 57, 47, 8 years, is it? Something like that.
Yeah. Too early for maths.
It will go on, won't it? You know, that as long as we fail to win the FA Cup, but even when we do win the FA Cup, you know, his legacy is gonna live on. I'll be interested to see what the tribute is. I mean, obviously, it's going to coincide with our last game of the season. And this talk, isn't there? We've spoken ourselves about statues and renaming stands and all this kind of thing. I think I joked about the Villa Mount Rushmore, didn't I, in the new North Stand. So I just hope there's a fitting tribute to him and the 1957 guys as well. That's probably his most famous moment. But there was also this quote that Joe's included today in this tribute, which said, from Peter McParland, "My ambition was to play for Aston Villa, and I achieved that ambition. I love playing for the club and playing with a lot of good players. Over the years, things haven't happened at Villa Park, but during our time, we made it happen. Aston Villa was my life. From a boy up to playing for them, I enjoyed playing for them, and I enjoy watching them play." Share the sadness, share the pride, and just wish all of his family and friends, send our love across to them, and we're going to do him proud, I think, when we pay tribute to him in that final home match of this season.
Yeah, obviously we just had the Whole Tenders in the Sky half-time tribute, didn't we, which has some players in it towards the end, and obviously on Saturday evening, normally the last home game. And irony is not the right word, but I can't think of something that fits. We've spoken about McParland recently on the podcast about the 1957 Cup winning team that, it's been such a long time, but everybody who's a Villa fan knows of Johnny Dixon and Peter McParland, the captain and the goal scorer. Like, that's just the way it is. And the fact that it's so long ago and it's a different time, and it's all in black and white, doesn't matter. Like, we've spoken about heroes, icons, legends. Peter McParland is an Aston Villa legend without a shadow of a doubt, and everybody who is being brought up as a Villa fan from here on out should know and will know his name for what he achieved. Whether Villa go on to win the FA Cup for 10 years in a row, Peter McParland doing it back then is still important. And yeah, really, really sad news, and we couldn't not talk about it in some way. So our little tribute on the podcast to him. It's real shame.
Yeah, just one final thing, just this piece that I wrote a while ago. The crafty half-time fags, the rigid W formations, the £15 a week players' wages, the brutal tackles, the only televised game of the year. If Aston Villa's 1957 FA Cup final triumph feels like a world away from football today, then that's because it was. The famous photograph of Captain Johnny Dixon being lifted aloft by teammates including match winner Peter McParland, with the FA Cup raised above his head, remains one of the most enduring images in the club's proud history.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Absolutely. Right, Matt, thanks for joining me for this opening to the episode, and we'll crack on with the rest of the show. Hello and welcome to the Claret Blue podcast, sponsored by NordVPN. I'm your host, Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley, and this week's special guest for the Q&A is Matt Lynch. Matt, how's things, mate? You okay?
All good. I feel like I've had a promotion to go from post-match reviews for away games to this. So, yeah, no, all good, yeah.
Good stuff. John, we were at Villa Park yesterday. A little bit of a drab affair in some parts, but Villa did create chances and ultimately won the game. And that's the most important thing. How did you see it?
Literally that, like a really scrappy game, but Villa won. And that is genuinely all that matters. I said a few days before the game, or maybe just in the pre-match, that I was already nervous about Bournemouth. So my thoughts were on Bournemouth already, which may be a bit silly because we still had to beat Fulham, sorry. But that just feels like an absolutely huge, well, it is an absolutely huge game. I think Villa can take care of business against Spurs, and the final day is the final day, but you just need to beat Bournemouth. So that is the only thing that I was thinking about, really, even before Fulham. So yeah, all eyes on that now.
We thought this episode was going to come out Tuesday morning, but we're filming it Sunday night, and everybody listening on Tuesday would know the Forest result, but we wouldn't. So now this is coming out Monday before Forest even play, but it is after Newcastle drew at Brighton and Chelsea beat Liverpool. We'll talk about some of the permutations and what that means for Villa. Ultimately, not much has changed. Villa still need to win all their games and see what happens with the rest of them. This is the Q&A, of course. We've got a list of actual football questions, some good ones in there, and some silly questions as well. And we normally leave those till the end. However, because we've got more than one, Matt, I'm going to give you the power at any point after we've finished the previous one, just to shout, silly question, and we'll just throw one in out of nowhere to keep us on our toes.
What could possibly go wrong?
Don't do it after question one, though. Let's just get a bit of a rhythm going first. We'll start with Baker Rooney. Great name. Do you think, what a talking point this is to start off, by the way. Welcome to the show, Matt. Do you think Emery has lost the dressing room at all? Watching the yelling match between him and Conte yesterday tells me he has with some of the players. Now, lost the dressing room is more so that the players don't believe in the manager. I always think it's kind of the other way, that Emery's maybe fed up of some of the players, maybe, rather than the other way around.
No, there's no. I saw that incident, and I'm not being funny. Conte played the hospital pass of a lifetime in that moment, and it got quite heated. And I'm not being funny, but that would be the exact same in Sunday League, or if Arne Slot on the sideline today, Van Dijk, if he did that against Chelsea, that would have been the same thing that would happen. It's not like Arne Slot's fell out with Van Dijk. No, that's a sorry that didn't happen, but it's crazy to suggest the idea that he's lost the dressing room. I mean, we've come off the back of winning a ridiculous amount of games of football, and yeah, we've had a bit of a rocky patch, but there's no signs to suggest he's lost the dressing room. I think it's far from it. I think there's clearly a lot of passion, as you'd expect at this moment in the season. So it's unfounded to suggest that he's lost the dressing room. I'm not sure what incident he was, because to me that just seemed like the average sort of conversation, altercation that you get in most Premier League games at some point across the whole calendar as such. So yeah, no, I don't get that one.
Do you see anything in the other way, John, that maybe Emery does feel that some of these players have maybe run their course a little bit and already knows in his mind, okay, I need to make these changes in the summer window?
Possibly. I don't think that was anything that was reflected in how he was shouting at Conser and throwing his arms at him 6 times. I know he didn't mean that. But I don't know. I guess the question comes a little bit from the fact that Watkins has spoken previously about, I'm not happy about not starting games and whatnot. But at the end of every interview that a player says, they'll always caveat it with, but I'm also playing in the Champions League and I'm playing under the best manager I've ever played for. So, yeah, there's no dressing room being lost here. I think we've seen that as Villa fans previously and in a match against Fulham as well, only a few years ago, obviously at Craven Cottage. So, yeah, no problem here. If you kind of flip it a little bit and say, well, you want to see players like that without Emery shooting a rocket up his players at half-time and screaming and shouting at Conser as well. That was a message to the rest of the team. And also, I think the crowd as well, to be honest. Emery didn't say that the crowd was flat or anything like that. He didn't need to. I think we all expected it to be at points because it's a lunchtime kickoff and it's obviously on the back of 2 poor results. The players needed to put in a performance to get the crowd up. They didn't really put that performance in, but we did make more than enough chances to win the game. So we definitely deserved the victory. But I do think I agree with Emery in terms of some players were relaxed a little bit. We took our foot off the gas in stages, but as I said before we started, I don't think Fulham have played very well at Villa Park for a number of years now. And in the last 3 years, when they've actually been a decent side under Marco Silva, they've just been really weak. I thought we could have won yesterday 3-4-0 in the end. Didn't play well at all, really. So not a case of anyone losing the dressing room and the players are angry at Emery. They're angry at some of the decisions in terms of them not starting maybe, but ultimately that's to benefit the team. And Emery said this. He always says actually in press conferences and whatnot that he explained to the players, we are bringing in 5 new players in January, making the squad better, and some players are sitting out of some matches. McGinn comes off on the hour mark. They might not like that, but ultimately that's what makes us win 10 out of 11 games and win 1 out of 6 or something from November to December before the winter window opens. So ultimately what we've seen in the last few months, as a result of some players not playing as much, the results have been there. And if the players want to be playing in the Champions League next season, well, that was always going to happen.
Next question comes from Tally. She says, do you guys happen to know when the Spurs game will be confirmed? By the way, I love the podcast. Thank you very much. We don't know, is the very quick and simple answer. However, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth that this is even a conversation that why is this being moved for Spurs' benefit? They got nothing to pay for in the league anyway. Like, that's on you, make changes then. Like, we had no help with moving fixtures around for our Champions League campaign from the Premier League, so why should we roll over just because Spurs want the game moved? Like, not having that.
Reading the statement that Villa had put out, or what had been ended up in the press in that regard, it seemed that Villa underlined the fact that there's no precedent for this ever happening before. So why should it suddenly happen now? So, I mean, I'm not privy to it, but I'm assuming Man United's game hasn't been moved anyway, because it's a TV selection is the reason why it got moved anyway, isn't it, more than anything else? But you look down the years where other teams have competed in the Europa League at that stage. I know it's the Thursday instead of the Wednesday, but from that regard, I don't see any rhyme or reason why they should be. And as you say, it's not like Spurs are fighting only at the front at that stage. I mean, they may as well do what we did against Liverpool a few years ago and wheel out the youth team, although in truth, I'd rather play their first team than their youth team at this moment in time. But that's sort of besides the point of it, isn't it? Yeah.
It goes without saying that Villa flat out objected against Spurs' request. So they want it on the Thursday, as Matt says. The Villa game, and then they would play the final if they get there. Of course, Bodo Glimt will have something to say about that the week after on the Wednesday. I mean, it's literally the Premier League could confirm something within like 10 minutes of us finishing this video, so I don't know if they're going to even confirm anything. You'd like to think that they're going to tell the clubs, okay, it's just going to be played on the Sunday, or if it is moved, then that needs to be sorted like literally at the next opportunity, because fans need to organise travel. This is Villa's final home game of the season as well, so that's another reason why the club feel like they're being mistreated here a little bit, because they have obviously plans to, I don't want to say celebrate the season, but it's the final home game, where you can have opportunities to do different things. If that's a Thursday night game, you won't have the chance to do those because then you've got school the next day, different things. So whether the game gets moved or not to a different day, we will see. I'd like to think that there's no way it's going to be moved to a Thursday. That can't happen. Villa flat out said no. And then if it happens on the Sunday, again, the last thing that Spurs said, which was a couple of days ago, that they were still in talks with the Premier League, but Yeah, they're obviously not happy about the situation. It's not because they don't want Spurs to win the competition. They don't care. There might even be a benefit of Spurs winning or being in the final for English coefficient or something. I don't know. But that's not the point. It's, as we just said then, because UEFA haven't helped Villa previously when they've asked for it. And as well, I did a piece saying that essentially Premier League are opening the floodgates a little bit here. Next season, everyone will be asking for a league phase or a quarterfinal, because what's the difference? And I get, it's a final, but what's the difference between a quarterfinal, us playing PSG, that is essentially like a final for us to get into a semi-final? Like I don't buy the argument of Europa League final is more important than Champions League round of 16.
Let's say Bournemouth get into the Conference League and they've got a must-win league phase game, and they want a game rearranged in November, because getting through to the last 16 of the Conference League would be massive for Bournemouth.
Yeah.
You're right, it kind of opens the floodgates.
It just sounds selective, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, because it's the Europa League final. Okay. And I get it. It's a final, but it's just as important for Villa to have won a quarterfinal in the Champions League because of money. So if we really want something, why can't we have it? So yeah, it sets the wrong message, I think, and it would be double standards for sure.
Let's move on then. I love the wording of this question from Robert. It says, does anyone else think that the players ripping their socks to make them more comfortable, brackets, I guess, is disrespectful to the kit, and other types of socks must be available to them? I love it. I saw Ross Barker was wrapping his ankles yesterday before he came on, and his Villa socks are up, but he had socks like underneath. This is what they all do because they're more comfortable than the actual football socks. But the cutting the holes in the back of the calf thing is fascinating to me. The idea, I guess, is to kind of relieve pressure, maybe, so they're not as tight. But then there was a player a couple of weeks ago that I saw that he had like the wrapping underneath his calf, supposedly to keep it tight, but then had holes at the back of his sock. So it's just a kind of silly footballer fashion trend, isn't it? As much as anything, I think, Matt.
It's a fad. It's like, if you remember back in the day, it was the done thing that they'd wear their proper ankle protectors over the top of the actual socks. Like Ronaldo used to wear like his ankle protectors over the top. Yeah. So it's just a fad in that sense. But it's a great question. I mean, I'm sure Adidas,
it's no good, isn't it?
I'm sure Adidas in truth don't really care, because in truth they're talking about it more. But I think it's more funny the fact that, you know, say like Sunday League, like little Timmy's playing for under 11s football, and he's made his mum cut a hole in his socks so he can make himself.
Because Mo Salah's doing it.
Yeah, just because Mo Salah and Ross Barkley's doing it. But yeah, you can just imagine how that conversation's going to go down at home, can't you? Like,
I spent 20 quid on them socks. I ain't cutting holes in them.
Exactly.
No, I was just thinking about the snood. Remember the snood back in the day? I was saying back in the day. When was that? 2010 maybe?
Carlos Tevez.
I was going to say Carlos Tevez was Ashley Young for a little bit, Nasri maybe, and then I think people quickly realised you don't need a snood to feel warm when you play football. Like
Did I say it was dangerous? Was that the reason? Like it could be pulled? Is that the
probably,
reason?
I bet it probably could be used like that. I mean, dangerous is a bit of exaggeration, but you
could have died out there.
Remember
that Ferguson clip? Got hit with the ball.
He could have been killed. Could have been killed.
Good start, everybody. Right, let's do something a little bit more serious. Tone change, everybody. Chris Heck. PDX Villain says, what do we make about Chris Heck's departure? He's done some unpopular things, but the club has seemingly improved its financial situation during his tenure, which was his remit. How do you reckon the approach is likely to change under his successor?
But I think it's fair to say fans didn't feel like they were listened to. When you read the notes from the fan forums and that sort of thing, it's pretty clear that Chris didn't listen to fans' concerns, or in truth didn't turn up. So there was a genuine disrespect. And I think that above all else, it showed very similar patterns to what happened at New York Red Bulls when he was there. Everything was very similar in terms of the time periods of stuff that happened and the point where he's leaving. And yeah, you know what, credit to him. He's raised finances substantially, but in the process, what he's done is priced out a lot of match-going fans that have had to make difficult choices in the last 2 years over renewing a season ticket that they've had in their family for the last 40 years, or deciding that they're not going to go to the Bologna game in the Champions League because they want to make sure they can go to Celtic after Christmas. I think that's how it fell in terms of those fixtures. So, you know, that's a really tough decision. And in truth, has the everyday match-going fan had a better experience the last couple of years? No, it's got worse. If you're in the hospitality sections, yeah, it's got better. But again, that's been at a cost to the everyday fan. And yeah, I doff my hat off in the sense that he's came in and achieved his brief in terms of increasing revenue substantially. But what he's done in the process is tugged on fans' heartstrings and their back pockets, and it's meant that a lot of fans have probably walked away from the club as such because of that. And in terms of what that future holds, I think that it's going to be foot to the floor still in terms of that approach. I don't think anything changes in that regard, but I think the more interesting factor will be is the sort of character we're getting along the lines of somebody that perhaps has had experience in the world of stadium expansions and that world and development of the land around Villa and that sort of mould of person. So commercially minded in the football sense, but somebody's that I just have a feeling there'll be someone that's overseen those sort of large scale projects as well.
I think the argument of we've raised revenue can't be denied because that's literally true. However, saying this to somebody at football the other day, if Villa are 15th, Adidas aren't interested. And we don't increase BK8 to Betano and 4 million to 8 million or whatever the figures were, because you have to be good on the pitch as well. And that's Unai Emery. Bandwagoning off the back of Villa being good to get better deals is, kind of egg or chicken, isn't it? Which comes first? Raising ticket prices isn't exactly kind of genius level, is it? We can make more money here if we knock them up. I think the successor to Chris Heck from a job point of view will probably be exactly the same. Like, the argument is he's doing exactly what the owners want him to do. Like, they've okayed ticket prices going up. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a whole thing. So, but I think a little bit of compassion goes a long way. Like the way that we saw Damian, his letter to the fans saying, that we know how hard it was to get tickets, ... and pay for them. Just a little bit, one little line, but a little bit of understanding of, like, we know this is tough. So I think communication going forward for the next person, being a more friendly figure, if that's even possible in this kind of job. I don't mean communication in the sense of tweeting up the Villa every time we make a new deal. I'm talking about like actual communication with what is going on at the club and a little bit of sympathy for, like, okay, we know that ticket prices, we know that season tickets are going up 3%, but we're going to do X to kind of, help out or whatever. Some kind of compassion wouldn't go amiss. So it's not going to be an easy job for the next person. And a cynical part of me feels like any kind of bad decision that happens in the next 12 months, we're like, well, we're still recovering from the previous regime and the new guy won't get any blame. So, yeah, we'll see what the kind of reception is for the new person in the next year or two.
For me, just communicating and collaborating with fans as well, listening to them a bit more. And we're not saying we are saying make tickets 50 quid, but equally, I think everyone has a realism of they were always going to be more. They were far too much, don't get me wrong. And as you say, they're done. Maybe all of these things were club policy anyway, and someone new coming in will have the same idea about ticket prices because that's how you raise revenue. But I was about to say small things like having a terrible tifo turned crowd surfer at Wembley, but that's actually a big thing for me because that is the prime example of not collaborating with your fans and listening to your fans. That should have been
understanding.
Yeah, that should be sorted. I'm not saying the day after we beat Preston, but like pretty soon after. Okay, fan group, what do you guys think? How can we make this happen? How can we make this a scene? And no, that doesn't mean that we're going to win the game, but when it doesn't work, it's a clear kind of observation that anyone can make that, well, there's a disconnect there, quite obviously, when it really shouldn't be there. So small things like that along the way, and that's not the only kind of example Matt says there about the fab board and whatnot. So, yeah, whoever comes in doesn't have an easy job in terms of making that connection with fans when ticket prices are going to still be high and all those things. It's a difficult job in that respect, but I think there's definitely steps you can take to make it easier for everybody, shall I say. That's probably one of the things that you'd hope that the new person will bring to the role.
Next question comes from Adam, who says, were you going to say something, Matt?
I was going to call for a silly question because that was quite a deep, serious one. But no, I'll let you roll on. You've already called Dan out, so
we'll do a silly question after the next one. I'll give you a chance to come in with your big alert. Adam says, opinion on Cash seems to split the fan base. A lot of fans around me moan when he cuts back when there's an opportunity to go forward. We know Unai likes one fullback to sit and one to go. So would you agree with me that this is what he's being told to do rather than him choosing to do it? I'll start with you on this one, John, because me and Kendrick spoke about this on the post-match yesterday. So I've kind of said my piece on Matty Cash's cutbacks.
Probably a mix of things. This might sound like incredibly harsh, but I mean, skill set. If you are one of the best right backs in the world, you carry on and put in a cross and we score from it. So I think one thing is that he knows his limitations. And by the way, that isn't saying he's not a good player. I thought he was our probably second or third man of the match, actually, against second or third best player against Fulham. And I think he's been solid for a number of weeks now, to be fair. Again, we know that Cash isn't one of the best right backs in the league, but he certainly is capable of doing a job, and he definitely has a place in our squad, because a lot of people are quick to criticise him and say that, oh, we need to upgrade here, we need to do this, but you always have to improve your 11. You can never take one player out and just replace them like that. At the moment, Matty Cash is still a better player than Andres Garcia, because Andres Garcia only joined the Premier League a few months ago. And again, there's a reason why Unai Emery is picking him over that player. There's a reason why Kostan Nedeljkovic has been sold just months after joining the club. It's that felt like a bit of a kind of Frederick Gilbert situation where everyone's like, why is he not playing? You know, he looks all right, but then he's gone, and we don't know exactly why. He looked, decent, but there's a reason why Cash is continually playing ahead of these players. Don't get me wrong, in the summer, I think if there's a position where Villa need to improve, right back would be relatively high on that list, just because we have so much quality throughout the squad. But again, Cash absolutely has a place in this squad. He had interest from other clubs last summer, including AC Milan, Poland International. So, no, he's not our best player, but equally, he definitely does a job. By the time this is out, there's some quotes from him actually that's basically saying that he's had a bit, I wouldn't say he's had a pop, but he's had a bit of a go at the supporters who were quick to criticise Villa last week after losing to City, and then obviously the Wembley no-show. And has essentially said that we need their support, and kind of, having a go at us when we're down really doesn't help, which I thought was really interesting. And I wouldn't say brave, because, you just give your honest opinion in a mix zone or in an interview.
Pretty unpopular. But I think it will be unpopular.
But how do I say it? I think he's aware sometimes that he can be someone that's scapegoated. Should we say that? So I think he's aware that sometimes there's a kind of perception that he is a player that Villa should be moving on or should be improved on. But I do like that he backs himself. That's what I would say. And that's when I say brave, I mean like he's not scared to give his kind of opinion. And ultimately, he's saying that because he knows that supporter fans, that's what will drive the team on. So in that way, I think I can respect that for sure. But I know straight away fans will be thinking, yeah, but if you're not going to show up at Wembley, you're not going to show up at Wembley. That's just, there's no kind of coming back from that. You can get the Champions League, but still that day is going to be a bit of a scar for supporters. But equally, Cash to say, Villa won, he didn't say this, but I think it was something like 10 out of 11 games. So I do think some perspective is required when we say, this player isn't good enough, this isn't right, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, those quotes will be on Birmingham Live as of last night. So if you want to check those out, please do.
I watched them a lot at Forest because I used to work on the sports coverage in Nottingham, and I watched a lot of Matty Cash. And when he came through at Forest, and I was excited when he joined us. And he's been on a hell of a journey with us to be at the point now where he is. But I think the rate of his development has perhaps stalled as when Villa as a club and squad's development has now surpassed where Matty probably is in terms of his career trajectory at this moment in time. And that's not to mean he's not going to be a top player for years to come for another side. But you look at his output this season, it's 1 assist in the league this season. Quite simply, that's not good enough for a fullback that should be getting forward and creating chances. And we know he cuts back, but in truth, his end product generally when he is forward isn't great. He's not making the best out of a bad situation, because that makes it sound like Matty's a bad player. He's not. Yeah. He's far from it. He's a very good footballer. But I just think that the pace in which Villa have developed tactically and as a club in terms of the players around has perhaps surpassed where Matty is at this moment in time. And that's no disservice to him, absolutely not. And I've probably scapegoated at some point just this season, but that's the nature of the beast and the cycle that he works in terms of being a professional footballer. But from that perspective, I do think that he's a saleable asset this summer for a good price, and I think that's plausible that happens. But for what he's done for this club has been nothing short of phenomenal in terms of when he joined the club to where he is now. But it's one of them where, I just think we're at the passing of the ship at the guard at this point, changing of the guard, I suppose, in terms of that position. I think that it's probably fair to say the same for Luca Dean as well. There's an argument to say that we're seeing more and more of Maatsen at the moment. Is that because of the teams we're playing or in terms of managing Dean? But for me, in that perspective, I think there's probably that element of changing of the guard come this summer on that regard on both sides of the pitch. But nothing but respect for him. But I can see why there's the scapegoating of him. But I think there's not a first team regular place for him long term.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you said, and this is a really simplified way of putting it. And it doesn't always work like this because some players suit certain clubs, systems, managers. But I think if you look at where Villa want to compete, and let's just expand it to the top 8, does Matty Cash start right back for the teams that we're competing with?
I think that's why fans are quick to put him down. If there's a minor mistake in there, they'll be quick to use that as fuel to say, "Oh, he's not good enough anymore." When other players will be making mistakes too. But as you say, they're done. That's what everyone will be thinking. He's not a superstar in the Premier League in his position. He's, I don't know. I'm not going to say he's top 5, top 10, or whatever it may be. I'm not going to go down that road. But I think that's what fans quickly look at, basically, without thinking that, well, actually, Cash has played his part in a team who've gone from there to Europe to Champions League and played pretty much most of the games. So he absolutely deserves to be here and continues to be here, in my opinion. I would still be keeping Matty Cash in the squad. Granted, I don't know what Villa's finances are to a T, and if there's interest, maybe the right fee and it suits both parties, maybe something will happen. But if that isn't the case, you keep him in the team and maybe you upgrade, and I don't know, maybe Garcia, you don't upgrade and Garcia improves next season or whatever it may be. Villa will have a plan for him. But yeah certainly he's played his part in the club's rise, and that is, I think that is a kind of testament to what he's done for the club in general. Yeah, you say the same for McGinn, you say the same for Watkins, Martinez. They've all those players who were signed from 2020 and before, they've all improved, some more than others, and some can maybe still go another level. Who knows? Cash probably isn't one of those players. And therefore, as Matt says, maybe this summer there's time to go. But personally, that isn't something that I would do unless, again, everything is suited in terms of the transfer, and if Matty wants to go himself, if the right offer is presented, and if Villa bring in someone else.
I'd like a silly question, please, Dan. It's like constant and vowel.
Okay. Roberto Solano asks, and anyone who listens to the podcast regularly knows what you should expect a silly question from Roberto Solano. Could 100 Dans beat one gorilla? Now I'm going to change that because I don't want it to be about me. The classic thing that is doing the rounds at the moment is, could 100 men fight and overcome one gorilla? We're probably a little bit late to the party doing this, actually, but we're going to do it anyway. John, gut instinct straight away, no thought whatsoever. Who wins, 100 men or one gorilla?
Gorilla.
100 men.
No, it's gorilla. Come on.
No, I was saying that because did you see the clip of Cole Palmer the other day? When he got that question. Gorilla. No, it's gorilla.
He was getting on a plane, wasn't he? Yeah. Trying to argue his point, and then they cut him off.
I mean, if Cole Palmer thinks it's 100 men, it's definitely one.
I mean, I don't know how to say it because it sounds horrible. And whenever my friends are messaging on the group chat, it's like the thought of actually like devising a plan to do this just sounds like terrible animal cruelty. So I'm not going down that route anyway. I don't know. I'd like to see 100 gorillas against one poacher. Let's just say that.
I mean, the thought of it. I mean, without going into the actual.
Do you know what I mean? It's hard to. I don't want to talk about it.
If you're in that group, a gorilla, absolutely lethal, way stronger than us, right? I don't know how graphic I want to get it, but if you're in that group of 100 and this gorilla is ripping limb off blokes around you, you're gonna go. I'm gonna go and get. I'm running away. Like the actual reality of this happening. As soon as you see him tear the head off one bloke, hey, I'm out of here, mate. I ain't getting involved in this. So
you'd have to.
You're gonna have Petter on the phone in a minute after this.
yeah, I think we should move on. But I would definitely say gorilla still.
Let's move on to some other football bits and pieces from Stephen. We've got a penalty on the final day of the season, Old Trafford, Man United. If Villa score, they finish in the top 5 and secure Champions League football. Who from the current squad, John Townley, is stepping up to take that penalty?
Can we sign the gorilla?
100 men.
God, I really don't know. Every player I go to, I just get flashbacks of them missing a penalty. So
yeah.
Wait, right, let's go. So Watkins, I wouldn't be confident with. Tielemans missed a penalty relatively recently. Marlon missed his last penalty on his last duty. Where'd you go from there? McGinn?
I got Luka Dean.
Oh, God.
Luka Dean is playing. Yeah. Oh, God.
I just think
that's kick for the club, potentially.
Luka Dean might score, right, in this scenario. But like, if I'm sitting there watching this at home, it's on TV, we need to win, and Luka Dean steps up, I'm like, oh, surely there's another option.
Another scenario here could be, and I'm hoping that he does it against Bournemouth and scores a hat-trick. But if this is Watkins to break the record as well, he's taking it. No ifs or buts, he's taking it.
Barkley, because the chances are Barkley's on the pitch if it's late on.
I really don't know. It's
scraping the barrel, isn't it?
The fact that you're going through the players means that we don't know. We really don't.
My gut reaction was Tielemans.
What I would say is that Emery has already announced the 5 takers. He said it was Rashford, then it's Asensio, I think, second. And then you've got Watkins, McGinn, and there was another player, but I forget who. So it would probably be Asensio, who has never really taken many penalties in his career and has missed 2 in one game against Southampton. Yeah. So
it's a horrible question, and the fact that there isn't just an obvious answer, like 15 years ago, you just go Gareth Barry or James Milner, like just give it absolutely fine, they'll score it. The fact that we don't have that is a little bit worrying. Can we talk about the gorilla and the 100 men a little bit more instead? I'm more comfortable doing that. What we're doing essentially, actually, we're still on from Justin, who says this was in the YouTube comments to the post match. Anyone else noticing nobody's talking about Asensio? He wasn't mentioned at all here on the post-match, but no wonder. He's like a black hole. A negative space going through the motions. I've said it before, much to Dan's amusement, if he's not scoring goals, he does nothing. This is what I meant. Now, at the time, that was like funny because I think he scored twice or whatever, but didn't really do much but score.
Yeah.
So I was like, but he scored, yeah. We've done that before. But at the moment, he's doing I absolutely agree. And it's weakening our team to have him there because it makes Rodgers worse, I think. So I didn't think he should have started against Palace at Wembley. I was surprised he started against Fulham, but obviously we've won and it's fine, but he didn't really do anything there either. I think we had a period where it was like, 15 million euros potential. Absolutely snap your hands off for that. And now I think, if there's a deal on the table in the summer, would I activate it? Would I go for it? I'm not so sure now. What did you make of him, Max? It feels like he's come full circle. And he's a bit of an enigma again.
The thing that I take away from it is that Morgan Rodgers' form has been on the decline since Asensio has been in, or should I say, when Asensio starts on the same games as him.
Yeah,
and I think that's because Rodgers gets pushed out wide where he's not well suited. And I think we should be building the team around Morgan Rodgers for the next 5 years plus. I don't know if that's going to happen because of financial fair play and all that sort of stuff and PSR. However, I think that it's been a detriment. But on the point of Asensio, yesterday, the one chance, didn't he, where he looked like he'd created something and then it petered out. And I think that's probably been the story of his games since basically that Southampton game where he's missed the 2 penalties. And it's a shame, really, because he was so good for us to start off with. Was it 8 goals he scored for us, which is incredible. But would I activate that release clause, that clause as such, to take him on? I wouldn't, because we've seen dead weight at Villa Park before, and it never ends well. I mean, Coutinho's still on the books. You only have to look. I know it's chalk and cheese in comparison to what their contributions to the club have been in the time they've been at the club. But from that perspective, I think he's a phenomenal footballer, but he's a luxury player. And I don't think we're quite in that position where we can afford those luxury players from a financial standpoint. And as much as I'd love to see him stick around, because don't get me wrong, he's one of the best footballers I've ever watched at Villa Park. If you've put your sensible hat on to commit to it and the wages that come with it, it doesn't make any sense and it doesn't add up. And I think the only way we sign him is if we have Champions League football next season. I don't think he sticks with us if we end up in the Europa League anyway.
It's funny how form kind of tricks your mind a little bit. That if his spell at Villa is 8 goals, whatever it is, over, I don't know, what is it, John, 18 games or something like that, you'd be like, oh, that's a pretty good return, actually. But the fact that all of them came at the start and then maybe none came after that, if he scored a couple and then went on a spell of not scoring and scored a couple and it was spread out, you'd probably think, oh, he's had a decent time overall. Yeah. But he had an electric start and then has absolutely fell off a cliff that makes you think there's kind of 2 different players here.
Well, that's why I'm not making a decision just yet, because he could maybe be the player that fires us to the Champions League still, because he had such a good start. That's why I'm reluctant to say that. How do I put it? If he is going to be pretty anonymous in the last 4 games, I think the decision is pretty obvious not to do it because of wages. If we didn't have such an issue with wages, I would take him on. I think what I would say on the kind of flip side of that would be, well, if you had to pick out some players to relieve your wage budget, you would be looking at, offloading Asensio if he was your player, I think, because of age, because of different things. So why take him on? Equally, and putting him on a 2-year deal, which is going to be a lot of money. He's going to be 32 when he leaves. There's no resale value there at all. Rashford's a similar one, really. I love him as a player, and I'd very much like him to stay. But for £40 million plus a huge wage, I'd much rather see us, improve the defence and fix that out, because we have players like Morgan Rogers, like Jacob Ramsey, who are capable of causing problems. And again, I back Monchi and the recruitment team to find these gems that have helped us to get to where we are now. Rogers, other players as well. I think a lot of our business has been criticised a little bit by some sections of fans, i.e. Anana, Mats and other players who haven't played too much. A lot of those players have helped us, and Emery we've seen improved around Rogers, all these players. So I'm happy to see us kind of start again in the summer and recruit maybe 5 or 6 players who can come into the squad with a chance of being a first team player eventually. I think that's something that, as Matt says, will probably suit us better rather than sticking with players on huge wages. And yeah, experience is really important, but the finances just don't align if we're going to sign all of these players and keep the like of Luca Dean. And yeah, we have to drive down our wage budget, but equally keep a strong squad.
The summer business that we did was okay. Lots of stuff maybe for the future. And Arno and Matson are the 2 kind of standouts that have had a very slow season and just starting to now pick up a little bit of form. And maybe next year they're absolutely always in and around the first team, playing every week kind of thing. Maybe not necessarily starting, but always featuring, obviously injury providing. And then we went big in January with Rashford, Asensio, Marlon, Disasi, Garcia. I'm not saying that's the strategy, but like if we go and sign 5 or 6 players in the summer and we have what we've seen with Anana and Matson and Tielemans, that they take the bulk of a season to get going. Mate, is there anything in like, I don't know how to word this, but like the start of next season is with the likes of Anana and Matson, but then you go big again in January to kind of manage your way through the early stages and then go hard again in the second half. Is that a thing?
I think that completely depends on how the players do when they first come in.
Because Rogers came straight in and was good straight away. And was like,
pretty much, like it didn't take him that long at all. What I would say is that the depth is absolutely crucial. I get the players coming in, they might not be fully up to speed in terms of what Emery wants, but Anana still scored 3 goals in 3 away games for Villa. And arguably one of those games, we won by 1 goal against West Ham, 1 goal against Leicester, then scored against Young Boys. I don't know, but the key thing for me is depth. If you let go of Luca Dean, if you let go of lone players, Rashford and Asensio, don't sign them, Disasi goes, that's already 4 players you need to cover in your squad again in the summer. And obviously you do have January, but can't forget that we sold Duran for 65 mil. He was our second top scorer at that point in the season as well. So I'm not scared about selling players. There's probably 2, maybe 3 players in the squad that I would be scared about selling. We'd have to really do well to replace them. And that's probably, firstly, obviously, Kamara. There's a new deal on the table. Martinez, Watkins as well. You have to replace those players because they're at the top level. And I mean, I'm not going to go into Watkins right now, but that's goals that you need to replace, which is always going to be difficult to do. So, it's going to be a massive summer. But we obviously know the preparations happened way before now. But in terms of finalising those, we need to know what competition we're in.
I think that the Marlon signing, I think I've talked about this before on here, Dan, but for me, that was a summer signing that we had the opportunity to seal it earlier, and we did that business earlier than planned, which is probably a testament to they've seen the time that it took Onana and Martin to fit in as such, and granted 2 different players in terms of their situations at that time. I mean, Onana was part of Everton trying to keep them in the league, and Martin was on his way to a Champions League final. But more to the point, I think that we were savvy to that business early, because I think that we'll see the best of Marlon come August, and it wouldn't surprise me, Dan, if there's a question about Marlon mixed into this mix, because it feels like every time I listen to
there isn't actually
always one about it. Is there not? But yeah, from that perspective, I think that the season isn't a case of the full season. I think you get these different spurts throughout it. So I don't think in truth it matters too much in terms of this embedding time, because teams will spike and choose their moments to make that run. I think only Liverpool have gone hard on that sense of the word. In terms of their run. Otherwise, everyone's had their moments this season. And I think that's just the way the game's going. I think we'll see that even particularly more next season, where you get these little spurts throughout. So I think from an embedding time process, it's probably a little bit easier, to be honest.
You work in your business for almost like the season after, that like Matson, Anana and Marlon, I think will all be like,
you have to do that,
but way more like important from the off, August, whatever. They might start the first couple of weeks or whatever, whereas at the moment, like it's Dean, it's somebody like McGeehan or it's Bailey or whatever Asensio. So you're almost kind of a little bit behind yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Tielemans and Luiz. They knew for a while that Luiz would be the one that would probably go because obviously the finances. In terms of the left back, they knew that Dean would have 12 months on his deal from this summer. Obviously, it wasn't on the picture to give him a new deal. We don't know what's going to happen even now. But if he does go, you need a left back already there, and you're going to have to bring another one in because we don't have obviously a backup left back if Dean was to go. So yeah, you have to forward plan. That's probably half the job really.
Right, okay, you mentioned there, John, 3 players that you struggle to see leave, or not struggle to see leave, and you don't think they'll go, but like they'd be hard to replace.
Yeah.
Ishmael says, if we had to sell one of Martinez, Kamara, or Watkins,
getting there, come on,
to help solve any PSR issues, which one do you sell? I think there's an easier choice out of those 3.
There's an easy not sell, which is Kamara. Don't sell Kamara.
I think Martinez is the don't sell. But
really?
Martinez and Kamara are very close, though. It's like 51-49.
Watkins was the third that you've just said.
Watkins is the one that I'd pick.
That's interesting, that Dan. So you would sell Kamara before you sell Martinez?
Yeah, but only like by a Nats.
Really? How big's that?
That was really very little. Like Kamara, obviously I don't want it, but I feel like, and
really?
this is probably
really
rubbish. I think you can replace Kamara easier than you can Martinez.
Fair enough.
Not from like the player perspective, because Kamara's great. I mean, he's had a crap couple of weeks, I think.
I'll be the first one to say that. Yeah, well, you could probably say so. Martinez, I think we take him for granted so much in terms of climbing the ball, leadership on the ball. I think it's fantastic. He doesn't get anywhere near as much praise as he should. But I mean, I'll probably let Matt probably take it from here. But
there's a few bits here to take away. When you think of Kamara, I cannot think of a replacement I'd want to see us go out and get. When I think of Martinez, straight away I go, right, Kelleher's available this summer. I'd happily see Martinez go if I know that Kelleher was coming in. In a similar mould, I'd happily see Watkins go if I knew Liam Delap was walking in through the door in the opposite direction. That's how I see it in terms of, I'd like to think we'd be aiming at that level whereby you look at, say, a Kelleher. I mean, the Spanish guy that we've been seemingly scouting is a similar age and profile to Kelleher in terms of age and in terms of what he offers to the team. So sort of get that. And then on the opposite side of that, I look at Delap and go, he's returned this season in a very poor Ipswich side, tells me he's going to be an unbelievable footballer and the long-term replacement for Harry Kane in that England side. So I go, yeah, fair enough. But so yeah, when it long and short of it is that rather see Watkins or Martinez go in comparison to Kamara. And if you asked me to put me under the gun and say Watkins or Martinez, I'd go Martinez. But then,
really?
No, I wouldn't. No,
I
wouldn't.
Watkins.
No, I wouldn't. I'd go Watkins, yeah.
The only thing I would say about Martinez, and this is purely from a business point of view, I think you could essentially replace him for half the price.
Yeah. It's such a risky position to mess around with, though.
No. I'm not saying you can replace his level, though. We can't get as good as Martinez, I don't think, or even better. Definitely not going to get better. But for example, if you sell Ollie Watkins for, give me a number, 45 million or something, could be more, could be less. So should be less, really. But call it 45. How are you going to replace 15 to 20 goals for 45 million pounds? Like you might
activate Liam Delap's release clause for 20 million and away you
go. Yeah. Well, if Matt was Monchi, it would be fine. But I feel like it's harder to. You could break even in that kind of deal. The Martinez one, I feel like you've got an opportunity to make money though, and also save wage. So from a business point of view, selling Martinez makes more sense. He's also obviously 32. I know Watkins is 30, but 32 Martinez, big wage. Obviously, just signed one last year. He'd still command a big fee. The only thing I would say is that is a massive market for him. I know he's got an offer from Saudi. How much would they pay?
He won't go to Saudi. They'd probably pay 50 or 60. He won't go there.
He'll be behind.
No, I wouldn't like to think he would either. But
he won't be in the Argentina squad if he goes there.
If Villa are happy to take a fee for Martinez and bring in the Spanish keeper that we've been looking at, that has a release clause of 21 to 25 million pounds, depending on different things. What would be the fee that you'd be happy to take for Martinez as one? But equally, who would you want to sell him to? Because you don't want to sell him to Chelsea. You don't want to sell him to any of the Premier League team. You want to sell him to Saudi. But you're right. I'd be stunned if he went there. Equally, I also thought he'd probably put laughing emojis on his Instagram story. because nothing's been. He hasn't pushed back on it just yet, has he? Let's just say that.
I don't think he has to, though.
I know that. Well, no, I don't think they have to. But yeah, okay.
But Martinez was linked with Bayern Munich, wasn't he, last summer, quite heavily? Bayern Munich were apparently sniffing around. So from that perspective, yeah. But that makes a lot more sense. And I'd quite happily, if he said, I want to go to Bayern, I want to go and win the Champions League and win everything that you can under the sun. I mean, Bayern have won the titles, don't they? But I'd go, fair enough, you crack on sort of thing. And we can all part quite happily knowing that we've made a bit of money and he's going somewhere where he's going to go and win a Champions League, potentially.
Yeah.
So
it's a really
interesting dynamic,
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what fans listening think, because we've not all picked a different answer each. But I think Watkins is the easier pick because there's been interest anyway. I'm not going to go into who misses loads of chances. We've done it to death, but everyone knows the narrative around him. If you can get 50 odd million, you probably do go after a Delap at 25, 30, and you've made a bit of money. And if he has a great season, he can match Watkins' output potentially. When I say that I'd rather lose Martinez, or I'd rather lose Kamara than Martinez, and that's so close, I'm not going to die on that hill. No point. It's literally like
it's your own back.
It's one or the other. I don't like the idea of messing with the goalkeeper department until we absolutely have to. And I think you've probably got another 2 or 3 years until you even have to think about replacing Martinez.
This is a fascinating debate, though, because can we all agree that Martinez's form has dipped this season?
Oh, 100%, yeah. 100%.
And I'm just playing devil's advocate. Would that not be the right time to sell him then?
Potentially, but I'm of the mindset
not
of why
forcibly.
But there's nothing to suggest he won't bounce back and have a brilliant year next year.
Yeah, I totally agree with Dan in terms of saying, like, with PSL wasn't a thing, keep Martinez without question. But if there's a certain price that Villa need to, or a certain amount of money that Villa need to make, and they feel like they can change him, and the level doesn't change massively, and they make, I don't know, call it 20 something million if Martinez goes for 45, 50 million, I don't know. That is something that I think they'd want to consider rather than changing Watkins for this player and possibly playing more. Like Louise, replace him through Barkley and Tielemans, and you make about £40 million in the process.
The final piece I'd have on this is that we're forgetting how many goals Watkins has scored. I mean, he's about to break Gabby's record from that perspective. It's so much harder to find a goal scorer that can do it consistent in the Premier League year after year like he has. I'd say it's a lot easier to find a new goalkeeper than it is to find a replacement for Watkins, because if you asked me to name a striker other than Delap that I'd be confident enough to say sell Watkins, I'd probably struggle, to be honest with you, with the confidence of knowing they can deliver. As when in Martinez's case, I could probably wheel off 5 or 6 keepers that I'd happily see in goal for us that I'd be comfortable with.
And I think a lot of people will be like shouting at the screen, sign Samu, sign this player, sign that player. We don't know if he'll score goals in the Premier League for Villa in this system. That's the key point. It's a risk. So, and again, Watkins is the biggest thing for Watkins. He misses so many chances, yet he's still, in and around that 20 goal mark, and was last season. So his biggest thing is he doesn't score enough goals, but he does. Because if you said you're signing Samu and he's going to score 19 goals next season and 15 the season after, you'd snap your hand off for that player.
Yeah, I just think with the Martinez one, I mean, the kind of a counterpoint for him to be the one to go is that we have conceded quite a lot of goals. So, like, worst case scenario, we change the goalkeeper. Well, sometimes we concede 3 in a game anyway. So, is this goalkeeper not going to do that? I just think it's just such a risky.
Villa do need to improve defensively, and I don't know if that would be improved through replacing Martinez. It sounds almost like obviously not, but I don't know about it, because we have good players in defence, yet we leak so many goals. So
he's definitely been at fault for a few goals this year, and he's definitely not been as good as he has been. It's easily been his worst year. So if Saudi come in and say here's 80 million, you'd have to take it. It's silly money to turn down for who he is. But I don't know. I mean, the fact that we've not mentioned the Kamara as an option at all probably says that he is absolutely no way an option. But I'm probably reading too much into it. But it's different players. But we don't miss Louise at all. Maybe we wouldn't miss Kamara at all. I know, but there's kind of more evidence in that position of the pitch.
And Tielemans was a free. Tielemans was a free as well. You'd have to bring in a player that's as good as Kamara, or pretty much there or thereabouts, for what price?
I think the unfortunate one here that hasn't been mentioned in this is that, in truth, you look at it and go, any of our players are sellable because of the position. Nobody's going to be immune from an offer this summer. I think Villa would probably listen to an offer for anyone, in truth. And that's just the way the market is. You look at it and go, there's going to be interest in JJ again. I don't think it's going to be at the sort of prices that were talked about last summer. The similar note is you look at Konsa, there's bound to be some level of interest there in Konsa. And then
Yeah.
we know full well that Real Madrid have been sniffing around Pau for a while already. But granted, he's not at the level of these other guys, but it goes to show that I think that any of those players could end up leaving this summer. Forget those three. I think there's a real possibility that more of those go than we quite anticipate across the board.
Well, Rodgers.
Anyone's for sale. I'm not scared about that at all. If you sell Rodgers for £100 million,
Yeah, you're laughing,
you
aren't
know,
you, to be honest?
it's £100 million.
Yeah.
We love Morgan Rodgers, but any player is worth a price tag. And again, this isn't us selling Grealish and having a different transfer committees buying players and Perslow saying that Bailey, Buendia and Danny Ings are the future. You know, this is Monchi and Unai Emery building a squad to compete across all competitions and all. We're dealing in different terms anyway. £100 million to come into the club now is much better than £100 million even a few years ago when players were cheaper.
I'd like a silly question, please, Daniel.
Okie doke. We did have 4, but I'm going to drop one because we're running out of time. So we've got 2 silly questions left. This one's from Callum, who said, would you rather have a 50% chance of standing on Lego when you wake up or a 100% chance? Does the chance and the hope of not stepping on it outweigh the chance of actually being ready for it? So I had to double check, like, hold on a minute, surely it's just the 50%. And he was like, yeah, but you live in this like paradox of like, will I, won't I? 50%, I might not. The kind of fear of the 100%, you are going to get out of bed and step on Lego. You can at least be ready for it and you know it's coming.
Part of me would say the 100% because then that can't affect my mood.
Because you know it's going to happen anyway.
If something annoys me very, very early on in the day, it sets my tone for the next 5 hours. If it's going to happen anyway, you're just like, oh, that happened again. Like, I would probably take the 100%. I really would.
I'd take 100% as well. My reason being is that if that question was plugs, I'd probably go for the 50% because plug pain is 10 times worse.
Oh, it's made me shiver a little bit actually just thinking about plugs is bad.
Yeah, so if that was plugs, I'd be going 50%. But as it's Lego, I'd go for the 100%. It's not too
Lego's,
bad.
Lego's bad, but it doesn't last that bad. A plug, that's a great point.
That's made my skin crawl a little bit thinking about stepping on a plug. That is horrible.
The question was a silly question because it should have been plugs.
Yeah. I'm going to swing my legs out, step down. There will be Lego there, but I'll get on with my day, and that's that. 50% is like, will it be there? Will it not? Ooh, yeah.
Pile of plugs.
Plugs is vile. I hate that you brought that up, to be honest. I really do. It's making me feel all weird. My neck's gone all shivery. Right, let's go back to football then.
I don't know why I've just looked down as if there's plugs there.
Just check it before you get up. Yeah. Right, Villa fan 1988 says, who do we think are the key players to build the team around? So the opposite of the one, which should we sell? The key players to keep now. Martinez, Watkins or Kamara. They've said for the next 3 to 5 seasons. Now, I think that's a little bit too far. For us just to deal with. But also, I think the times of Martinez, Watkins, Cash, McGinn, Konsa being here for 6-7 years in the world of PSR while it's still around, I think you are going to see players have these 2 or 3 year spells with clubs and then kind of be churned out and recycled. So let's go 2 to 3 seasons rather than 3 to 5. Who do you build this team around, Matt?
I'm going to throw my curveball first. Roy Wilson. I think in the next 3 years, that's my wild shout.
That is rogue.
The way I'm looking at it logically is that in 3 years'
he playing
time,
next to Liam Delap?
Well, you'd like to think basically my logic there is that you'd like to think in 3 years' time it is an established first team player for us. And suddenly that's 100% book profit, and suddenly you make a nice hefty fee on him. So that's my left field, throw that one away sort of thing. But more seriously, I think the cup you're going with is probably Kamara. Throw Joe Gauchi in the picture as well. So shall we? But no, I think from that perspective, I think it's got to be Kamara. In an ideal world, Morgan Rodgers, number 1.
Yeah.
I think that number 2 is that you'd like to see Martinez see out his career with us, to be honest.
We just talked about selling them just Thursday.
I know, but if you ask this ideal scenario of the players you'd want to definitely keep, you try and ring fence him.
Actually,
Rodgers,
to be fair, that's kind of the
maybe.
point, isn't it? Which of these 3 are the ones that you really don't want to lose do you want to sacrifice? They're also the ones that you want to build the team around.
Totally, yeah. And for me, I think that Watkins isn't with us in 3 years' time either way, to be honest. I think there's more chance of Kamara or Rodgers or Martinez still being in the club than Watkins, to be honest, just because of what I think he still feels he wants to achieve in his career.
Kamara's already been here for 3 seasons. So for him to be for another 3 feels unlikely. I think Rodgers is one that Villa absolutely would want to keep. Perfect age, done really well. I think Tielemans is one as well. He's still a decent age. He's played a lot of football.
The question itself lends it, you got to pick a midfielder, haven't you? A player in a central kind of role. So Tielemans, Kamara, or Rodgers. To give a really boring answer, I'd say build a team around no one, because that's you're creating a problem by doing that. I think if I had to give an answer to be even more kind of probably a player that isn't even in the team yet, because I think we're at a level where we're still building, and there's areas where we could probably improve, and that might always be happening. But hopefully in 2 years' time, we're at a point where we have a few Kamaras who are like, you just can't sell him for love or money. Like, you just don't do it. I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a couple of players. Well, there's a few players that you just don't want to sell. But we're all like, well, if we had to take this amount of money, you would. But as we said with Kamara, well, any price for Kamara is, okay, money, but good luck replacing him. You're going to have to do something else. Like, you got Anana, but you need another one, and you're creating problems there. I think it would be easier to, going into the question a little bit now, it'd be easier to replace other players stylistically or something along those lines. But every team needs that industrious midfielder who's going to win the ball back and set the tone. I don't really have an answer for it, to be honest, apart from Kamara. But I would just say that in a few years, I'm hoping that we have a few more of those players who you'd put, at a level where they are unsellable.
Okay, right. Let's move on to the final football question, and then no more silly question buzzer from you, Matt. We'll end on a silly question. King81 says, and I'm glad that they've sent this one in because they sent it in during the post-match live feed, and I had it in my list to talk about, but Matt Kendrick's Wi-Fi blew up, so we cut the show short. So they've sent it in to this instead. Should Villa change their pre-match song? In my opinion, Hi Ho Silver Lining is rubbish. It's a rubbish atmosphere builder, as everyone sings for 30 seconds, if that, and then nobody knows the rest. The atmosphere instantly falls just before kick-off, which is the opposite reaction. Surely we can do better. Okay, before we get into the talking much of this, Hi Ho Silver Lining, John, do you like it or do you not like it?
Yeah, I like it, yeah.
Yeah, I like it, but it's not Villa specific, is it? I mean, they sing it at West Brom, don't they? Amongst other clubs, so it's hard. Yeah, Wolves, that's it. Yeah, so from that perspective, I'm not tied to it, especially.
Yeah. I'm open here to be corrected by somebody much older than us that says, well, actually, we sung it before Wolves, but to me, it's a Wolves song. I associate it with them.
I have kind of no leaning either way in terms of that. I'm happy Villa to sing it. Always have been. I think it does create a decent atmosphere. It's the loudest that the crowd gets before the game starts. Without it, it would be pretty flat. What I would say is, though, I'm pretty terrified to see what Villa would come up with as a replacement. So for that reason, continue as we are. If it's anything like North London Forever, I would stay in the media room until 3:01.
Yeah, I do wonder about the merits of not having anything, rather than finding an alternative. Just like, right, that at 3:00 kickoff, 2:55 or a bit earlier, everything's off. Video stop playing, music stop playing. It's on you now. The players are about to walk out at 2:58. It's on you to sort the atmosphere out. Because if King 81 is right, Ho Aston Villa, yeah, massively loud, and then it kind of dies out a little bit. I fully agree with this. I've never really liked it. And I'm fully on board with it being an atmosphere mood killer than the other way around.
We would change it because some people don't like it, or change it for the atmosphere to improve. Because for me, I just think, is it worth just binning off altogether? I don't know. I would just keep it. I don't think it's a major issue.
No, it's not a major issue. No, but I just...
Or any issue at all.
Yeah. Again, probably will split the fan base. I think some people absolutely love it, but I'm not one of those people.
It should stay in the playlist, but doesn't need to be the song we're walking out to, is probably the fair reflection.
It does boost the atmosphere. They did it before the game. Like, it definitely does that. I'm not sure about it makes it flatter. I disagree with that, to be honest.
I whisper it a little bit, but I don't like Crazy Train either.
No, you can't say that.
Yeah, I can.
You can't say that, mate. No. Crazy Train is an absolute staple, and you
just move that forward.
An Aussie track.
Yeah, not at the walkout. I don't think it's a walkout track. In the build-up, do Hi Ho at 2:50, Crazy Train at 2:53, then turn everything off. So, right, we've done the music. It's now on you to sing some Villa chants for a few minutes.
To be fair, generally what kills it sometimes, I think, is the fireworks and the pyro displays. To me, that kills it.
I don't like the puff of smoke, but that the players walk past.
What do we think? What do we think of the new kind of monologue before the
Oh.
yippee-yi-yi.
I mean,
I'm just asking.
we spoke about this before. I don't like the yippee bit, but all the other stuff like we've been preparing all week. Get that gone. Don't need that.
You can pop it up there with the lion when they do the lion sound as well.
See, I don't mind that actually.
No, it's no, because that just reminds me of when Hull City used to get the mick taken out of them because they put the chant lyrics on the back of the sponsorship boards.
Terrible.
And they had Hull City did that as well with the tiger sounds, and I'm like, oh no, just
You'd go on like a club tour or whatever, a stadium tour, and you'd walk out the tunnel and they'd play the really high pitched music.
The trumpets.
You know, do we still do that? Not the tour, but before games.
I don't think so.
That's for me anyway. I don't know about you guys. I quite liked that. That felt like a Villa to me. It's not a song, but it just set it a bit. Really, nothing.
I think everyone will have that though. There'll be people that love the music that the players walked out to in the 70s, and they'll want that back. So I think this podcast having three people on it that we can't agree on what builds the atmosphere and what doesn't shows it's very difficult for Villa to get it right.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked that. It just felt a bit like, I don't know, something about it. It moved me, but I don't put it this way. I'd be scared. I'd be scared to see what they do next. Nothing against Villa, but any Villa fan doing anything for pre-match, make your songs fantastic, but before the game, what did we do for the Conor Hourihane? We had that song on, didn't we, before like championship games? Yeah. You can't be doing that now.
Let us know your thoughts on the atmosphere as well while you're down there talking about which players to sell. Right, we're going to end on one silly question to end the show. I mean, this could be the bulk of the discussion, to be honest. This could be quite a big one. Now, this was sent in, Matt, a couple of weeks ago, and I don't have who sent it or the specifics, so I've had to tweak it myself.
You made it up yourself?
No, it is a thing. No, we were sent it and we ran out of time with another guest. I can't remember who it was, and I've deleted the list of questions like a fool. So I had to kind of tweak it. Imagine a bowl. Imagine you're sat at a table and there's a big bowl in front of you. 100 grapes sit inside the bowl. For each grape that you eat, you earn £10,000 to keep. No questions, straight in your bank, tax-free, lovely. However, one of the 100 is poisoned. So 99 good grapes, one bad grape. If you eat the poison grape, you die on the spot, dead. How many grapes do you eat?
So I'm eating the first 9 quite confidently. I feel like that's
Matt's you thought about this. Yeah.
There's percentages of that here.
Percentage.
Why? The percentage of that of you getting one is 1 in 100.
1 in 99. Oh, 1 in 100.
Yeah, 1 in 100. So from my perspective, I'm taking the first 10 like a champ, bagging the 100 grand and running off at that point.
In a fistful all at once.
You go out in a blaze of glory, why not? So
imagine you take a fistful though. Imagine you take a fistful of 9 and 8 are good, but there's one in there as well. And just as you're chewing the others, it could get you. I think you've got the maths wrong here.
No, because I'm pretty sure you have to eat. If you eat a certain amount of grapes anyway, you can be poisoned anyway. So you're not going to get 100 anyway.
I think that's bananas, isn't it? Isn't it like you can only have 7 bananas in a day before you get potassium overload or something? I'm sure that was the thing, was it, when we were kids? Sure. So I think the percentages are wrong. You're right. It's 1 in 100, and then it's 1 in 99, and it's 1 in 98, 1 in 97, and so on. But isn't it like the chance of keep getting the good one means that it's not actually, do you know what I mean? Like flipping a coin is heads or tails, it's 50-50, but keep doing heads every time surely is not 50-50.
You're talking to the wrong person to write that one out.
If there's less grapes, obviously it reduces it.
But you're on a kind of winning run, so it's not just a big chance every time. It's like you're getting on a run, so it makes that you're like multiplying the chance or something.
If you eat 99 good ones, there's a 100% chance that the next one's going to be a bad one.
True, yeah. What I've run that a bit, by the way.
Don't eat the last one. don't.
You are right, though. The percentage would go up if you eat in that poisonous grape, surely. But from that perspective, I'd take the 10 and then run at that point.
I think I could say something now and act cool, but I think I'd probably just eat one. No, I think I'd probably do like.
I don't think. I
think 4. I think genuinely, if this was a real thing, I'd probably just wouldn't sign up for it. But
I think if it was a genuine real thing, I don't think you'd have any. Genuinely,
100 grand a pop, then yeah, you'd have a few, wouldn't you?
That's like,
got a
it's
chance
good,
there.
good money, mate. House deposit or death? Same thing.
That'll do, I think, for this episode. Thanks to whoever sent that in. You'll know who you are. Sorry, I don't know your name or your
Very good-
parameters. Their
very good
version might have
question.
been way better, like much easier. But yeah, we worked out 10 grand per grape. One is poisoned. 100 grapes. How many did you eat? Realistically, I think it's 0, but you might get away with up to 10. If you've done 10 in a row, there's still what? There's still 89 good ones. Surely you're thinking, come on, I'll have a couple more.
No, because in life you have to be happy with what you've been given. So if I can take away 6 figures from it, then I'm happy.
Maybe just don't start the
Right,
challenge then.
Yeah.
Gents, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me both. Thanks to everyone who sent in their question as well. Some really good discussions in this episode. We'll be back later in the week with something on Wednesday or Thursday. Bournemouth preview and a Bournemouth post-match. Me and John will go in the office with a bowl of grapes and see. You know what we should do, actually? We should get like not real grapes, 100 balls. One is red and 99 are blue. How many do you actually get before you pull out the red one?
I'm happy to do that, yeah.
Okay, so we can make that happen. Right, thanks everyone for watching along or listening to this episode of the Claret podcast, and we'll see you later in the week.